Hey guys, it's Zoom the TBT, and tonight we have Big X GM Andrew Dakich. Andrew, what's going on tonight?
Nothing much, man. Just got off the course with my dad. He beat the living crap out of me, so I owe him a little money. But it's great always to get out there in the course with your father. So can't complain.
Yeah, no, that's pretty awesome, especially, now that the COVID's lifted somewhat and you can get out there and enjoy the weather. So
Yeah.
great times. But, hey, we really appreciate you jumping on. Obviously, Big X, probably one of the teams in the TBT this year that's getting the biggest buzz. You guys made the TBT panels top 10. We think you're one of the most improved teams. It just really have a lot of momentum going. So, just tell us about how you got involved in the TBT and, kind of where that led you to this year.
Yeah, so I actually got involved. My first year was 2 years ago, right after I graduated. And I always, when you play college basketball, you see a lot of things on television. That's one thing that struck my interest for sure. 'Cause I knew I really didn't want to go play overseas, and I've seen Carmen's crew play before, and I thought it was something I would definitely want to get involved in, possibly on their team. I wasn't good enough because they had a lot of veteran guys from Ohio State that still play at a high level professionally. So I just created my own team and kind of, I talked to Dan Friel, and he kind of just had this idea like, hey, what if you make a Big Ten team of guys from Michigan, Ohio State, and whoever connections you have. So that's kind of how it all transpired, really.
It's interesting you mentioned that too, because I'm a Big Ten grad. I'm a master's candidate for our master's architecture guy from Illinois in 2005.
Yeah.
A little older, obviously, in the tooth. But I know Big Ten sports are just crazy. The fan bases. I mean, the SEC and Big Ten are pretty much the premier conferences for fan bases. And you've got a lot of alumni. You got your Wisconsin, your Michigan, your obviously some Ohio State players. And they play different styles of play. How, as a GM, do you try to mesh all the disparate philosophies of all those coaches they came with into a cohesive offensive and defensive philosophy?
Yeah, I think, obviously with Wisconsin, they play that swing offense that they've implemented since the Bo Ryan ages and maybe actually before. These guys are professional athletes that play either overseas or in the G League with some of our guys. So it's really easy to mesh. And the second thing is the chemistry, the camaraderie with the guys, and if they're a good fit. And I've known these guys, and obviously I've seen them from afar just watching the Big Ten over the years. So it was kind of easy, somewhat easy, I would say, to blend a roster together that is still pending. But, truthfully, a lot of the matter is a lot of guys come down to the last minute or so with playing or not. And that might be due to their contract overseas or their agent kind of telling them not to. So, this year with the COVID and everything like that, it's kind of been a more flexible, I would say. So it's been an easy adjustment for sure with some of the guys.
Yeah, talking with everyone recently, which, not much could come good out of COVID, but from a TBT perspective, getting the guys available, getting videos in, all that thing's been much easier on everyone this year. So, so good for that. You had the luxury of being a general manager, currently a general manager. You coached last year, I believe it was.
Last year, yep.
And obviously a player, so kind of wearing all three of those hats. You're really close to the Carmen's crew team. Your team's really evolved over 3 years into what we think is going to be a powerhouse. So what were kind of the key learnings from being a GM, coach, player that kind of led to this team that's building to look like a legit contender?
Yeah, well, first off, I appreciate the powerhouse because that's, that we can't use that word lightly, especially with some of the talent that's in it this year. But actually, I am a GM/player right now. I'm going to try to come out of retirement like MJ once upon a time did, because he gave me the inspiration from The Last Dance. So I have self-awareness. Like, if I can't compete, I can't compete. But right now I'm on the roster to play. With some of these guys, so I've had connections. It was more of acquaintances than anything, with guys like Nick Ward. I grew up with Vito Brown from Bowling Green when my dad was a head coach at Bowling Green State University for 10 years. And we grew up playing on the same travel league team, and he got the Wisconsin guys. The Nick Ward was through Kaleb Wesson. So there's always like a middleman with some of our guys, either via Ohio State or Wisconsin. That's for sure, because that's kind of the makeup of our entire roster.
I do find it interesting, too, because you do have the makings of a really strong roster. We're going to touch briefly on Kaleb Wesson, because what's interesting about TBT, and it's come up a couple times, is like because of its nature of where it is in the calendar, it has been a way for guys who are going to declare for the draft or taking their first professional games to have this transitionary period between the college season and the NBA draft. Obviously, the schedule is completely screwed up because of COVID. I mean, the NBA is going to be restarting at the end of July. How interesting is it you to have an NBA draft pick where you're going to be responsible as a GM for his first professional basketball? Is that a responsibility that you think is something that you should be proud of?
Yeah, when you put it like that, no.
I mean, well, you're up for it, obviously. You're up for it.
Yeah, you know what? I almost think the glass half full. Like, I understand. And Kaleb, to be honest with you right now, Caleb's still a toss-up. Like you said, he is a potential draftee whenever that might be. It could be possibly late October, early November, or, it's always subject to change. But, Kaleb is a guy that loves playing basketball. He's an unbelievable guy on the court, but more importantly, he's a better guy off the court. And I told him, like, look, I just asked him, like, I didn't even think he'd expect anything of it, but he was kind of all for it. And it's going to be a tough decision for him whether or not he should play, because the chance of getting injured and things of that nature. But right now he's all in. But we'll just have to see in a month or two, because obviously he's a huge piece that, like you alluded to earlier, he has a chance to possibly get drafted. So I'm not selfish, I'm not greedy. I told him, like, listen, it's all up to you. I made it very clear from the beginning. But I had to ask, because with all this stuff going on. So he's been awesome about it the entire way, as of right now.
Yeah, no, that's going to be great. Hope that works out. I think every basketball fan, watching, whether you're a Big X fan or a TBT fan, or wherever you watch basketball, would love to see him playing the TBT this year. But your team looks, like we said, fantastic right now. You're bringing that core back of yourself, and then Jackson, Woods, Iverson, Brown, just elite shooters. I mean, you go through the roster and the TBT history, and these guys are all shooting 40% plus from three. And then, so you mentioned Nick Ward briefly. So it looks like you went outside of kind of that Ohio State core to get some size. Nick Ward dropped 20 on my charge one game. Just big, thick body. Floyd, obviously a big guy, defensive player of the year in the Patriot League. So obviously, what was it about Ward and Floyd that obviously you were friends with Ward, but drew those guys to you, and why you needed to fill that need?
Yeah, well, Nick Ward is a Columbus native that had a lot of roots to some of our guys on our team. And he's a no-brainer. I mean, that guy's a high-motor, really efficient player in college and really efficient player in the G League. So it's kind of a no-brainer with that guy, just because of how dominant he's been wherever he's been through high school, college, and the G League. So, and then with Floyd from Holy Cross, that was actually a connection through Vito Brown. And to be honest, I knew Nick and I knew Kaleb, but he's the most intriguing. If you see some of his highlights, that man dunks everything and anything in sight. Like, you could throw up a bad pass and he's going to get it. He's a smart, high IQ guy that, I think he almost fills a void where he's a shot blocker and very, very athletic, big. It's a little different than Kaleb and Nick, who are probably more skilled, but he's more of a threat around the rim, just alternating shots and things like that. So he was a wild card for sure, going outside the Big Ten, getting him from Holy Cross. But I'm intrigued by him, just kind of talking to him and getting his feel. He's all about it. He's got no agenda other than to try to win this whole thing in the TBT.
Yeah, no, I'm excited for both those guys on your team. I just think it brings a real nice balance to what you have in your skill set with your core Ohio State guys to reach out there. So I have to ask about Jason Tate. Obviously, he was set to play in 2018, and you kind of referenced some of these guys that are fringe draft picks and have professional careers. The guy's been killing it overseas, and definitely would be one of the top free agents in all of TBT, not just Big X. So I'm assuming he'd be loyal to you if he played. So any update on his status for this year?
Yeah, he's not going to play, unfortunately. I think he's got a couple. Yeah, I know, because I think he'd be unbelievable, and he'd give us a better chance. So you could call us a powerhouse possibly if we got Jason Tate. But no, he's got. I mean, he like you said, he's done exceptionally well overseas, and he's going to stay out of it. And I think it's the right choice, even though I may have done a little begging because he's my friend and all, but for the better of his career and his future as a professional basketball player, I think it's best suited for him not to play.
I think this conversation is real enlightening too, because I think a lot of people really respect all the GMs in the TBT community. We understand, like, in this ecosystem, you have to understand that the players are going to have to look out for their own livelihoods, and it's not like a traditional sort of tournament. So I think it's really insightful to see that you're taking your players' best responsibilities within your own sort of caring about it. But to that end, how are you going to be able to recruit? Because obviously you have a talented roster, but there's still some positions you'd like to fill, I'm sure. What are you looking for to fill those last roster spots? Like, what kind of roles and players do you think you'd like to try to bring on?
That's a good question. It has been a toss-up. So first off, with our whole team, like it's not a dictatorship where I call the shots. Like, no, it's a democracy. Like, if you have somebody involved that you think that could possibly help us, then let me know and we'll talk to them. Like, that's kind of how we've always done it, and that's how we'll continue to do it. But we are looking for possibly a wing that is a potential scorer. Like, I think Vito Brown does a lot of great things. Like, he's a tweener between truthfully like a 3-4-5, but I think his strength is pick and pop and one dribble pull-ups and straight line drives. We're kind of trying to figure out if we could get a scoring wing to get in the mix, but it's going to be tough to possibly get a guy. But I think it is intriguing due to the circumstances we're in, to where guys are actually going to start wanting to play and try to play with the Big X or some TBT team. So everything is still kind of pending, but we're looking for a scoring wing to answer your question short.
Aren't we all? Aren't we all?
Yeah, no kidding. Yeah, no doubt.
Yeah, the rosters this year are interesting. What I'm hearing through the grapevine is teams are going to be capped at 12 people, whether it's players, coaches, GMs. So is there a possibility that there's going to be a triple threat, GM, coach, and player this season?
Are you referencing me on that one?
Yeah. You going to do all three, or you got a coach in mind?
Yeah, that's a good question. We have a coach in mind. I can't say his name yet, due to his actual job, but
Ooh, we may have lost him temporarily.
like you,
Oh, yes.
smart, or
The dangers of technology. Hang on a second, guys who are listening. We'll bring Andrew back once he's sort of – we're not going to mute him.
hopefully get in this cut. If I had enough to be on board, then try to substitute the best I can.
Okay, Andrew, what just happened is your phone started acting like it was on the fritz. So why don't you go back and we will pick it up where you said Charge was talking about what kind of coach you have in mind. You said you couldn't talk about him because of his real job, and then you went out. So you can start back from there. These somewhere really beautiful. Those are wonderful trees.
Can you guys hear me right now?
Now we can hear you. So you're talking about you can't bring your coach. You can't tell us about your coach yet. No worries.
I'm literally walking in my house right now. I apologize.
No worries. It's beautiful. No, I live in Brooklyn. I'm jealous. I see these trees.
Hear me straight?
Yes, we hear you straight now.
I can barely hear you guys. That's the problem.
This is actually the first time this has happened, except for the Hickory episode.
And then we got dogs barking.
Dogs are great.
Hang on. Sorry.
Are those your dogs?
I hope so.
I hope, yeah. Otherwise, it'd be a problem. I love dogs. Yeah. I love dogs. We should have
Andrew running through the neighborhood with a...
Yeah, he's like running. He's like, oh, my God, there's dogs.
Lula, no. Okay, can you guys hear me?
Now we can hear you, yeah. Are those your dogs?
One is, yeah.
What's the dog's name?
One is. What's that?
What's the dog's name?
Her name is Lula.
Nice.
She is. Nobody knows what kind of dog she is.
Best kind. Best kind.
Which,
There's the best.
yeah. She's great though. We never been a dog family, but when the kids moved out, she came to fill that void, I guess.
Every year, my girlfriend and I go to the Westminster Dog Show pre-game, not the real ones. We don't care about the breeds. But they have the agility drills and the meet the breeds, and we always watch the crazy dogs run around and pet dogs for 3 hours. It's fantastic. We don't care about the show because it's just
It's a great
pussy
idea,
poodles,
actually.
but it's wonderful. Yeah. We left off before your mic went out about talking about your coach. You said you couldn't name who it was because of his day job, but you want to talk a little bit about what sort of his role is playing, about the intelligence and what you're looking for in a coach.
No, I'm good. I'm so sorry, guys. Give me
You're good.
one
You're fine.
sec.
You're good. You're good. This is kind of fun,
for
actually.
whatever reason, I'm struggling hearing you guys.
That's
Sorry
okay.
about this. Hang
No
on.
worries. No worries. We're getting a tour of a wonderful home. Charge, I am jealous of all of you people in the Midwest with your homes. I live in an apartment. In fact,
Yeah,
I'll show you guys.
Trees and grass, just you don't have to deal with the lawn mowing and all that nonsense that goes with it, though. So
We may have lost Andrew, actually. Now we lost
I
the
think he's
video.
just reorganizing.
Yeah, that's pretty funny. There we go.
Okay, can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, you got it.
Okay, sorry about that.
No worries.
No, you're
no
fine.
worries.
You're fine.
No
It's
worries.
life. Life
fun.
happens.
Yeah,
That's what it's
this
all about.
This is the thing about live recordings. No big deal. It's funny. Okay, so where we left off, before find out your dog was named Lulu, which is fantastic because I love dogs, and seeing these wonderful trees because I'm jealous being in Brooklyn. Talk about your coach and the fact that you couldn't name who it was because of his day job, but you want to talk about some of his qualities, and then your phone broke down. So back to the coach. You can't name who it is, but
he is he's a high profile coach that has great experience from the high school to college to NBA level. He's one of my best friends. I consider one of my best friends. And, if he can't do it due to his day job, then, we'll all coach the team. My dad is in the background wearing what are you wearing? He's wearing a fedora and getting out some Jack whiskey right now.
ooh,
There you go.
Ooh, the only kind. So being a Tennessee guy, Jack whiskey is always something I'm always a little happy to pimp because Jack Daniels is a way of life. Do you know Jack Daniels is actually distilled in a dry county?
Is that right?
Yeah, so it's distilled in the county of Tennessee where you can't actually buy the bottles except for the little tasters they give out at the factory because it's a dry county. So
Really?
So Jack Daniels is distilled. The distillery is at a dry county. It's ridiculous. It's a ridiculous concept.
How ironic. Yeah, that is
my people.
That's my fun fact of the day to people now.
There we go.
That's
There we
cool.
go.
I love that.
Well, speaking of fun facts, let's talk a little bit about your team. So obviously, we'll talk a little bit. You have such a quality team. Can you talk a little bit about how the COVID preparations have either helped or hurt your recruiting? Because obviously, we live in unprecedented times.
Right.
And trying to understand how, is it easier or harder to get in touch with guys, to get commitments because of travel constraints? How is it working out with your recruiting, your roster building in this time of pandemic?
Yeah, it's probably been easier just because nobody knows what to expect really in terms of overseas contracts. So a lot of guys play overseas. They're still trying to figure that out, and when they're going back, the summer league is kind of canceled. From what I've been told, it's not going to happen this summer. So in a lot of ways, it's been easier because guys are just hungry to play, and I think that makes the TBT so much more intriguing because it's going to be the first thing that I at least from what I've been told, it's going to be the first kind of sporting event that people really see, probably outside of golf and horse racing or something like that. So
which aren't sports.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Yeah, say out here, you're gonna have everyone hating you.
Yeah. No doubt.
Those aren't sports. I don't care. I'm a basketball guy. I don't want to piss off anybody at TBT community, but I'm happy to piss off the golf community. They can screw off. I'm happy to have that fight.
I'm huge in the golf community right now, so that offends me a little. I love it. This is the most fun I've had playing golf in my entire life. So, but I get it. But okay, let's say the top 4 sports in the U.S. All right, that's probably gonna be the first one to come back. So. It's been a lot easier than expected in terms of trying to recruit for sure.
I actually was playing golf with my dad once, and I shot a 90, and then on the back 9, I also shot a 90.
I was gonna ask, my first question is gonna be like, how many mulligans did you have with that
Right.
90? But then you
No, he didn't use any.
Bad is what I'm trying to say.
That is funny. That is great. That is great.
All right. Hey, let's talk a little bit about Carmen's crew. We couldn't talk to Big X without talking about Carmen's crew. Obviously, a friendly rivalry, a lot of respect for those guys. They have the career win, one win last year versus you guys. This year's team is basically the same. They added Lenzel. Dallas is going to play this year. So how meaningful would it be for you guys to be able to face Carmen's crew sometime in 2020 and the team that you're building right now? How do you think you stack up?
Yeah, that's a great question, considering they're the reigning champs. Yeah, it would be, first off, for me personally, it would be damn near a dream come true to kind of compete against Aaron Kraft. Now, I say that before it actually happens because I know what kind of havoc Aaron Kraft creates, but just kind of growing up, really enjoying the way he plays, and truthfully gave me an inspiration to think that I could play at the highest level in terms of the Big Ten in college basketball. So, and like you said, I'm very familiar with those guys who I've worked out with these past 2 years at the Shaughnessy Center in Columbus. So it would be very, very cool, and it'd almost be like a dream matchup for me. Now, ask me if it's still a dream matchup afterwards. That's a different story. But, I have a ton of respect for those guys, and they really paved the way for Ohio State basketball, and really, truthfully, carved out they carved the way out in Ohio State basketball where they're kind of relevant more than anything, a top 20 basketball program of all time. So.
Yeah, no, I'm hoping that matchup comes through. I think it'll be just one of the most watched events in TBT history, aside from championship games, or, who knows, it could be a championship game for all we know. That would break the internet for sure.
I would love it if it was the championship game for sure. Yeah. But who knows? They're obviously going to get the number 1 overall seed. So we got ways away if we want to possibly make that a chance to be in the championship game.
Yeah, it's kind of funny. Just real quick, Andrew. It's kind of funny you mentioned, ask you, about playing Ohio State after the game once you get a chance to take on Kraft. Because we had Odd Elmore on from the Heard That guys, and they got to take a chance to play Ohio State, and unfortunately got thumped. And but it was nice to hear those guys, the respect they have for those players like Aaron Kraft and their big man who was just dwarfed by Solinger, and so it's just amazing to see the mutual respect all the teams have, and just that real difference in those guys and the champions that they are. And that's one of those ones. It's fun to play, and we'll see how it shakes out this year.
No, for sure. No, and first off, Len Elmore is a really good basketball. We played them last year. We played them in the first round, and Elmore gave us. Who's the Elmore that went to Marshall that had all those records?
John, right?
Yeah, John Elmore. Yeah,
John. Yeah, he's
a bucket.
He is a bucket. He is the definition of a bucket. I was the head coach. We played in the first round last year, and sometimes I was just in awe with some of the shots he was hitting. I couldn't even be a coach. I was more of a fan. I'm like, damn, go in, because it was just so exciting to see. But a lot of guys, like you said, have mutual respect for everybody really on this thing.
Well, it's a small community of a really bunch of passionate guys. That only makes sense. I mean, the sport definitely needs this right now. So I'm pretty excited about this and being opened up with, even in this time of obviously just lots of problems. And speaking a little bit about the pandemic. So like, obviously we know there's going to be restrictions about how you're going to stay, how you're going to eat, how you're going to be restricted movement because of the nature of what's going on right now. I mean, we're all kind of locked in our homes to some degree. How have you been able to get your team to buy into what's coming from a sequester standpoint, from a isolation standpoint? I know it's a lot to ask about team. Have you guys talked about that, or what it means for you guys?
A little bit. I think, we're in the infant stages of it all right now, considering it's going to be next month. But, guys are aware that, look, they're going to be tested for corona and they're going to be quarantined for a few days. But it doesn't really matter to these guys. Like, they're just hungry to play. a officiated game instead of possibly not being in a gym, because some guys don't have access right now to playing 5-on-5 with some guys and just having a chance to compete for $1 million, which is which, you know,
2 million, right? It's 2 million.
So I think it'll come out. I think it's going to be $1 million this year due to the whole coronavirus thing. So
Right. Less games, less TV, probably.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
They've done it. I mean, the Dan Friel and John Mugar have done an unbelievable job with it, and they've been preparing for this since January, actually.
Yeah, they've been really prepared.
Oh, it's unbelievable. Like, the guy should be next to Donald Trump. He should be Dr. Fauci out there, because the guy he's got everything lined up. It's truthfully been amazing with some of the things he said. So they have every avenue going on. So it'll be cool to see.
Yeah, no, those guys are very thoughtful and obviously very intelligent, and that's the one thing. If you're going to do a tournament and be the first ones out of the gate, it's got to be done right, and I think it's well positioned to be done right. So looking forward to that. And hey, before we head to close, we always like to talk about some of your favorite TBT memories. Obviously, some of your best TBT memories are yet to come, and like I said, I'm all in on Big X this year. You'll see from our bracketology. So I'm thinking we're going to have some even more. But whether it's been with Big X or you watching Carmen's crew as a fan, or what's been some of the best memories of you being involved with TBT?
Gosh, that's a good question. Well, personally, the first year that I played, we were down like 17 in the second quarter. I was like, why the hell did I sign up for this? And we came back, and it came down literally to the last basket, and Jamel Morris hit a running floater over 2 6'5" athletic ass dudes and just threw it up on the rim, and it went in. I'm like, holy cow, this is awesome. So it changed my perspective on the entire Elam ending, and that was definitely my favorite moment. I don't know, man. Like, watching Carmen's crew win it all last year in Chicago, it was they obviously kicked us out of the tournament, but it was really cool to see in a lot of ways. Just because, you know, those guys that I'm close with won, you know, $100,000 to $150,000 each. And it was just it was a fascinating thing to see. So I don't know if I can pinpoint one specific thing, but I think those two in general are my top two memories.
Yeah.
Selfishly, my memory, but you know.
Yeah, and that Columbus regional has been good. I've been fortunate enough to go watch the games in Columbus the past 2 years, and they've been phenomenal games. So they've been great regionals, and get to see you guys live has been a lot of fun. But you mentioned Jamel Morris, and you guys have some roster spots open, and I think the Underground Kings are looking to 2021, maybe. I think he dropped like 32 in a game, one of those games.
No, he did. We literally had to pay $1,000 out of pocket to get him on the roster because some guys couldn't play. So he was a late addition. He was a hell of an addition. He decided to play with another team. I don't know if they're going to – he's still in the back of our minds because we have some – like you said, we have some roster spots to fill. So he's definitely in the back of our minds with it all. We'll figure that out here in the next week or so with what we're doing with it. But, no, he's a great player. He's a great dude. We'd be definitely lucky to have him for sure.
That's a great place to end it. Andrew Dakich trying to fill in the Dakich. I screwed that up, but we talked about it earlier. Trying to fill those last.
What are we doing here? We just talked about that.
I know, right? Trying to fill those last roster spots. Going after Carmen's crew, trying to take that crown. Thanks for coming on, Andrew.
Hey, thanks for having me, guys. It's been fun.